Hi, Community Activist Network again, and here's the final part of our short interview with our friend Maxine Moore. And if a person does want to get involved because they have an issue or they have an opinion or there's something they'd like to do to make things better, where did they start? How did they get involved?
That's an interesting question, and when I've spoke to a lot of community activists, they tell me that they've often got involved through people like local community development workers in an area, and as we know, the local cuts will mean that a lot of those jobs will no longer be there. But I think all isn't lost. I think there's a wealth of people out there who can support and start to, if you like, hold hands and teach members of the community the ropes on how to get involved. I think depending on what the problem is, and if it's around policing and crime, for example, you know, you have a neighbourhood policing team, so it might be worth going and speaking to one of the local PCSOs, for example, to ask, you know, where's the local meetings? I've got these issues. Can I meet people to talk to them? I think also you've got your local elected members and your local councillors who will, you know, have a role to play there in supporting and pointing people in the right direction. Or even to just have a look if there's any local groups in the area. If you live in rented accommodation, for example, your local housing office will have local groups where people come together to discuss and to look at issues in the area and how local money's spent, etc. I think there are so many different routes. If you're a young person, and never should we forget that young people like to get involved, then there'll be local either voluntary or statutory youth services in the area, and if the young person goes along and joins and has a chat with the leader of the group, that's the way. And even simply to just maybe look at joining something like a home watch initially, to just find your feet and meet new people, and then maybe set up a tenants group or something on the back of being part of a home watch is a great way to start. And also, if they know about the network, and if you're watching this, you will do, then, you know, ask the experts. There's lots of activists on there with lots of years' experience, and I'm sure that we'd all be more than happy to speak to people, to send emails, to give tips and ways forward. So I think that's a great role for the network too.
For sure, Maxine, there's a lot of people want to get involved, but really there is not a great many people involved, in my opinion anyway. And I think that what would be really beneficial is if we had a really active, vibrant civil society, as the term is now. Would you agree with that?
I agree totally, and I think that one of the things that's happened over the last few years, and I was involved in the New Deal for Communities money, is that a lot of money has been spent on communities, and a lot of groups have been set up, and there's been a lot of hand-holding. And now I hear a lot of local people saying, what do I do now? And one of the things that I would like to see local people doing is, if they've been part of a group that's been disbanded because there's no paid worker anymore, but you've been going there 5 or 6 years, is take over it. You know, do that group yourself. You know the people, you know the ropes, you've got the contacts. And I think that's the start of civil society, of actually people starting to put back and give their time. You know, we've heard of big society and people have various views on that, but we'll have the community organisers in communities soon. And basically their job is to speak to people, to listen to people, and actually give them the opportunity to, again, look at what their interests are and what they can offer their community. And I think that local activists can do that in their own rights. You know, what can your neighbours offer the community? And it might only be something as simple as picking up a bit of litter outside the door, and that makes you an activist. That makes you actually interested in your community.
One of the things that activists find as they get more experience, Maxine, is that eventually they come up against the local authority, and it's the difficulty for many of them that I've spoken to is, how do you hold your local authority to account?
I think the first step would be to seriously look at what the local authority isn't succeeding on. To make sure that you've got your information, speak to your own neighbours, your people in your community, and look at where they're falling down. Every council and every job in the council has something called a service level agreement, which actually says how that job should be done, what timescales it should be done in, and the kind of things that the community can expect. And this should be public information. So you have every right to either go to the service yourself or again go to your local elected member and get them to find that information out. But I think the first start is to find out if the thing that you think they're not doing actually is part of their job. And I say that because there's a lot of times when the police have not responded to something, but it's actually the local authority's job to deal with it. I think noise nuisance is a great example of people often phone the police and the PCSOs go around, whereas there's a department within the council who deal with noise nuisance, and they can, with your support, have that noise monitored. You keep a record of how often it happens, and eventually the process will kick in and they can actually act on that problem for you. So what I would suggest is that you as a community activist actually start to understand, first of all, what services you are entitled to. And from there, you actually are able to make an informed decision. And then you can go in with your checks and balances and say, okay, this is what you should do, this is what you're not doing, and start to use then the systems that are in place. And there's lots of them.
And how do you find out from a councillor or from your local authority exactly what services you should be provided with, and where are these service level agreements that state exactly what they're supposed to do for you? How do you find that out?
If you go on your local council website, you can find out who the head of service is. Drop them an email, or write them a letter, CC or post a copy of that to your local councillors so that they know exactly what you've done, and wait for a response. From that response, you should be told, either we do this in this time, we're sorry we've let you down, or we don't do this and this is the service you need. But that's your first port of call, really, is to find the information. I think that what tends to happen when we first go into being a community activist is we'll jump in with 2 feet and shout at everybody. And I think what I would always say is, all right, do it the same way as the professionals do. Take a step back, get your information, go to the right channels. If you don't know what they are, speak to somebody on the website and ask them, and then do it that way so that you're actually working with as opposed to pushing against a closed door. And you should start to find that will get you a far different response than actually just phoning up and saying, I need to know this now.
Thank you very much, Maxine, for being here today. And for those of you watching this, if you've any more questions you'd like to ask Maxine about anything that she's raised today, all the contact details are here on this website. Thank you.